Let your light shine brightly, for you never know who you might inspire. The meteoric iron fire pit held steady, its flames smouldering, waiting for the older wizard to reach its warmth. Fizban shuffled to the brink, shepherding a wayward flotilla of teacups with an absent flick of his sleeve, and produced a long, cinnamon-scented sheet, the parchment of Fizban's treasury of dragons. It weighed the room with an assessor's patience, rustling at evasions, singeing at ramble, and, when pleased, sketching tiny drakes in the margins. A gold sigil bloomed at the heading, Lareth. The name arranged the chamber's air as if poised to hear the tale. Chapter 1. Lareth the Gold. Lareth moved through the world with a radiance resembling sunlight in deep water, an ancient power measured while routinely sure, calm-tempered through every gesture. His thoughtfulness ran through each aspect of speech as a gentle caress. He drew first from thought, then from details, fishing wisdom out of things others ignored. A stable hand's stray complaint, a marginal note rubbed almost to a blur, a chipped signboard on a forgotten road. The parchment, charmed by the habit, inked a neat hatchling holding a quill. He favoured himself as himself. A gold dragon entire, long and smooth metallic horns similar to his kin, wings reminiscent of a ship's sails, eyes assessing mercy and judgment in the same gaze. When a different shape served the day, he preferred an elf, the lines of the form elegant and deliberate, footfalls courteous to old floors, an aspect chosen for paths that open to gentleness. His power never announced itself as anything other than majestic and true. It gathered, powerful, sure, and inevitable. Cartographers spoke in rumours where maps stayed honest. Some swore to a honeyed cavern beneath the great desert, dunes of glass singing in night winds. Others named a cloistered grotto under the elven woods, near Myth Drana. Moonlight, patient upon the still water. Sailors, those who survived weather with their stories intact, whispered of a magically veiled isle on the Dragonmere, present the way a thought is present. The parchment settled only when Fizban added the single certain line, "Gold dragons knew, and courtesy sealed their mouths." A pale silver edge traced the border in approval. Measure a dragon by companions as much as by their hoard. Within this tale, Lareth chose his counsels that tested his connection to the weave and the astral. There stood Protantha, trusting Lareth above any flatterer. His candour made the bond, and he kept it through many strifes. There studied Larian, called the Nexus, great gold worm, a sorcerer mastered in his innate connection to the 8 schools. Scriptures detail that he was a scholar whose patience resembled a wizard's learning. He would sit through a fortnight if a theorem promised a blink. Lareth tempered him with questions that began 2 flights below everyone else's staircase, the sort of queries that relocate the foundation and, with it, the skyline. Lareth's last companion, one he called a dear friend, was Tamarand, king of justice for the great gold worms, a station he wore in the late 15th century of Dale Reckoning, chosen of Bahamut, decisive, wise, conversant with the irregular customs of humans and their many busy cousins. Lareth called him brother, and the two held a bond that would not be easily shaken. The parchment brightened along its margin, the silver edge shimmering once more, the signature it kept for rightful bonds. They met on wind-polished heights, in lamplit libraries, once in a flower-dusted mill whose air begged for restraint, and the kind of wisdom only present in ancient draconic children of Bahamut. Their themes remain consistent. The weave, humming differently where kindness had recently stood. The Dawn War, treated as a ledger of unpaid debts, a war that perhaps never needed to be. The machinery of spells, which Larandramagard diagrammed until the diagrams created new spells within the divination school. And the astral plane, graveyard of lost gods, where distance was an absence and time a rumour. From Tamarand came axioms of justice. From Lareth, corollaries of mercy. From Larendramagar, proofs that tested both. When the three closed a debate, the parchment laid down a faint gem tracer, an ancient spell used by dragons, a permanent link to the parchment that shone across the page, as though agreeing that truth had just taken the shape of a dragon's flight. The Council of Fizban listened. The Silver Matriarch breathed a low plume. Approval carried on the Silver Winter. The Bronze Tactician noted that a hidden lair grants options and anchors. The Brass Worm leaned forward, bright with riddles. My wise brethren, for what is a promise with no contract and forever kept by the brave? The ancient copper dragon smiled with the grin of a dragon who enjoyed seeing hope show its form on occasion. Fizban searched his robe for a tea bag, discovered an ancient coin instead, and let it fall. It clicked upon the relief. The map of the Sword Coast settled. Without drama, the coin lay yet with perfect aim on the Dragonmere. A ward brightened by the smallest shade. The parchment pretended disinterest. The teacups approved by staying upright in the firelight. Kindly, forgetful, ever timely, he moved on with a faint wisdom. Of Lareth's authority, there remained this. Decisions arrived from him with the calm of tides. He impressed by lifting others, not by forcing their gaze upward. His reputation followed into the ether of history's shadow, his part in this aspect of time, showing his wisdom from even the most trivial event. When Fizban folded the parchment, its corners curled in contentment. The parchment presented in its perfectible form rustle, only the small industry of inked metallic worms along the margin, as if the story had hatched companions of its own. Chapter 2. The Dragonrage. Before 1357 DR, Pratantha relinquished the mantle of King of Justice and placed it within Lareth's care. The parchment answered with a clean gold glyph, a seal for oaths carried without the vanity of ego. In the year of rogue dragons, 1373 DR, time rose across the skies, resembling a storm that remembered every old wound of this statement. And naught will be left save shattered thrones with no rulers, but the dead dragons shall rule the world entire. Samaster's working stirred the ancient Draconrage and drove countless dragons into ruinous motion. The parchment unrolled a narrow map, Novelarond inked in winter lines, and set a single rune where the mountains fold in on themselves. Years before 1373 DR, Samaster reached a mythal's capstone through a hidden portal in those peaks, an ascent resembling a surgeon's detailed path toward a beating heart. In the year of Uktar 9, 1372 DR, the year of wild magic, minor tremors began. The parchment marked each disturbance with a pale tick, acknowledging a hand testing a lock. By Hammer 1, 1373 DR, the work stood complete. Samaster turned the key he had crafted from himself, his phylactery. He now bound the mythal to abyssal energies, a graft identical to nailing a star's song to the wrong universe. Where the Kingkiller star once governed rage in cycles, the new tether supplied continuous power. The Draco rage now in a continuous motion, the rage of dragons in flight. The parchment laid a faint watermark across the margin, its truth acknowledged, and warmed along its edge, a restrained protest at a harmony rewritten to feed on ruin. When Lareth heard of his brethren causing ruin and destruction, he moved, true and purposeful. First, positioning himself between Bahamut's faithful and the oncoming frenzy, a great gold worm of will. But the wave of the dragon reached him all the same. Reason blurred, judgment tilted, loyalty re-aimed itself toward a suspicion. Tamaran stepped forward under metallic law and customs, issuing a formal challenge for the leadership of all goodly dragons so the code could anchor the flight. To Lareth, mind seized by the rage, Tamarand appeared as a tyrant. The challenge became an invitation to end a traitor. His resolve identical to his former guardianship fixed upon destruction. They met under a sky, as dragons once did in the Flight of Dragons. Larandramagar, the ancient gold, and Havilan of true silver stood as witnesses under the Ptarian code. Their presence gave the field edges, and time remembered this sorrow. Tamarand advanced on the wind with his restraint foremost. Rings of force unfolded from his foreclaws, resembling linked halos cut from daylight. They settled over Lareth's wings and shoulders, his divination magic asking for stillness rather than pain. Lareth's answer came as a surge of muscle and will. The halos fractured into shining fragments that drifted away akin to shed scales. A second pattern followed, a delayed fireball attempting to catch Tamarand off balance. Tamarand moved with elegance, his mind true to his purpose of restraint, and shifted from the fireball's blast. Lareth's then opened his maw. His breath came forward, gold-white and radiant, the beam veering upward at the last instant as Tamarand banked and shouldered it toward empty sky. Tamarand layered an abjuration shield, a guard around himself, panes arranged in a geometry identical to a dragon's wing. Lareth's next exhalation struck those facets and climbed heavenward in a column, star-bright and terrible. Where it passed, clouds vitrified, a variation of Tolodine's stinking cloud he had mastered. Havilan marked the altitude with a brief nod. The witnesses would later attest that Tamarand kept every burn away from the settlement nearby and the seashore, shepherding the catastrophe upward each time Lareth sought the horizon. Winds tightened to ropes. Lareth pivoted through them with an elegance resembling a master of court dances, wingtip cutting a seam, tail striking through a knot, claws closing on Tamarand's shoulder plate. The two golds tumbled through a gully of air and righted in the same breath. Tamarand answered with the triad of restraints, a variation of a paralysis spell. 3 sigils stamped along Lareth's spine, sternum and brow, each calling the body to remember rest. The first failed, the second shuddered, the third held for a heartbeat, measured by every dragon present. Lareth shattered it with a roar that scattered the remaining sigils as sparks, his fury unmatched. To the great gold worm he was fighting to destroy, one who would bring ruination to Faerun. Tamarand descended and skimmed the plain, drawing Lareth lower. Stone blistered beneath their shadows. With a downward sweep, Tamarand traced a circle, a ward resembling hammered bronze set directly into the soil. Another variation, a whirlwind spell altered to move gravity downward. Lareth entered the circle and felt weight increase. Gravity coaxed toward Tamarand's mercy. Lareth answered with a spiral climb, shoulders rolling, wings lashing gusts that peeled the circle's edge outward until it tore free and spun away again as a shining ring. They rose again, then stooped together, a mirrored descent, 2 spears of hammered gold. At the base of the plunge, Tamarand snapped his wings and stepped through Lareth's guard, shoulder grazing shoulder, neck arcing along a practiced path. His foreclaws found the juncture behind Lareth's sternum and settled there with surgical precision. A whisper passed through the air, resembling prayer rather than spell. He had to stop the rage. A mercy, Lareth's soul would return to rest, for he knew this within the ancient halls of Bahamut. The code recognizes 3 endings: capture, exile, or mercy through death. Capture had failed. Exile risked 1,000 further deaths. Tamarand chose the remaining path and completed the motion. Single stroke, exact depth, not a second blow. The sound of the strike arrived in 2 braided strands, impact and Tamarand's grief. His brother gone, but not lost to him forever. Lareth's body eased to the earth with a dignity matching the life he had carried. Havilan bowed his head. Larandramagar spoke the formal words with scholar's clarity and a brother's ache. He looked at his brothers. "But what is grief, my brothers? if not love persevering. They honored Lareth where he fell. Larendramagor named the virtues still present beneath the rage, listening first, the former king of justice strength spent to lift others, dignity held with a steady edge. Haviland recited the older courtesies and set them to watch beside the body. Fizban unrolled a narrow vellum strip, his hand tidy, his pockets chaotic, and revealed the Patarian code, a rulebook resembling law taught by his kindness. The metallic dragon's heads bowed, a respect to the fallen. Fizban recited the words of the code in remembrance for Lareth and all the brothers and sisters lost, justice and good above all, honor and fealty to the king, honor and respect to righteous innocence, honor and duty to the balancer, Lendis, to her mercy, Tamara, and to the justice maker, Bahamut, honor and protection to the lesser races, honor and correction to the enemies of justice and good, honor and forbearance for oneself. A small copper coin escaped Fizban's sleeve and clicked to a stop upon the line for forbearance. A ward brightened by a breath. The parchment feigned indifference. Several dragons traded a glance that recognized timing akin to providence in old robes. Tamarand knelt beside Lareth and offered the ancient courtesy for his fallen kin. The witnesses answered. Their words affirmed a simple accounting. The rage consumed minds, never honor. The stroke ended the madness, preserved his goodness. Leadership returned to steadier hands as the code required it. Around the firelight, silence gathered resembling respect rather than void. The bronze tactician measured the cost so others would not have to pay it again. The silver matriarch turned her gaze toward distant roofs and sleeping hearths. Life's kept whole by two friends, who consented to break one heart instead of 1,000. Fizban folded the parchment. For a heartbeat, his eyes held a depth akin to an ancient being. Teacups chimed, kindly confusion resumed. The room exhaled as banners no eye could see tested their cloth against a new wind, a tear shed, a bond forever ancient. Chapter 3. The Talons of Justice. The parchment breathed within the quiet solace of the tale, and a new heading formed. Rumour persisted that Lareth's spirit lingered in Faerun after his fall, an influence akin to warmth left in the sand after the sun's gaze. The margin laid a faint hymn, its sign for truths and hope carried forward without a body. After the rites, artisans and oath keepers drew at least 12 fangs from Lareth's jaw and set them upon an anvil blessed to justice. Each became a dragon tooth of Lareth, edges serrated and curved for a decisive bite, hilts and pommels fashioned as dragons in flight, a ruby set in the open mouth to hold a spark resembling dawn caught in garnet. Tempering fires and prayers turned each fang into a dragon fang dagger, a dragoncraft item whose wounds carried mundane heat. Injury joined to searing, a reminder that falsehood shrinks from both light and pain. When Fizban spoke that property aloud, the parchment traced a small sun on the blade's sketch and let it glow through the page. Those relics passed to the hands that could bear them. The Talons of Justice, an order of paladins, mostly silver dragons, received the charge. Their devotion centered on Zemor, Bahamut, their discipline on the Patarian code. Headcounts remained uncertain. Scores served as the usual answer, delivered with a patient smile. Members spread across Faerun, many living as humans and demi-humans in towns and cities, their service quiet and long. Their ancient structure held them steady. A barb, leader or high knight, at the summit, followed by lords, knights, trustees, initiates, all bore paladin vows. Some also stood as platinum knights or vassals of Bahamut. At the word code, the parchment's border silvered, a silver edge with a gold outline, an outward sign for mercy held within law. The leaders of the Talons each received a dragon tooth. The blades were said to contain a portion of Lareth's wisdom, his counsel arriving as a sudden ordering of thoughts or a memory aligned at the right breath. Among the Talons, the sensation earned a name, the golden afterthought, guidance that arrived a heartbeat before regret. Fizban read the order's work to the council through brief vignettes set upon the parchment. In Irongate Ward, a cobbler with moon-pale eyes, a silver beneath his hood, stepped between a mob and a boy accused of theft. The dragon tooth touched the brazier's rim, and the brazier's coal hissed into a sigil identical to the Tarian first precept. The crowd recognized the measure. The boy went home with a loaf of bread and a lesson about fealty and forgiveness. West, nearby Dragonmere, the location of Westgate was under siege. A woman with a silver pilgrim's staff waited until the press of refugees ran, all crushed toward a single gate by a roaming band of undead. Her dragon tooth kissed the sunlight. Heat arced into the clouds and etched a ward that held the lines steady, and the undead were sent to oblivion. Order returned without broken hope. In the alleys of Waterdeep, a scribe, a Talon of trusty rank, met a cutpurse whose knife matched his knees for youth. The dragon tooth struck once, flat to the wrist, heat-shocking fingers open without blood. The boy ran. The scribe watched his line of flight, then left a coin and a note at the tenement door 3 corners ahead. Report at dawn. Future work waits. Eat first. Mercy and hope restored for the cutpurse. Through such moments, the blades proved themselves. The Talons moved with a discipline resembling choreography for the public good. Steps set by the code. Flourishes granted only to mercy by Lareth's legacy. The brass worm leaned forward, bright with questions. Do the teeth ever speak? Do the Talons ever hear his wisdom? He asked. Fizban glanced down at the parchment and let his hand wander a pocket that rarely behaved. The cloth whispered. A gold velvet line appeared, then a dagger formed within enchantment magic steeped in its make. He unwrapped a dagger with a hilt carved as a dragon in mid-turn, the ruby resting between teeth. The chamber's wards woke a degree brighter. He held the blade so that lamplight walked its serrations. Lareth is remembered, he said, his voice gentle. And in the remembering, grief can be the garden of compassion. If you keep your heart open through everything, your pain can become your greatest ally in your life's search for love, and wisdom resembles speech when your heart is ready. He turned the blade to the parchment. The vellum welcomed the shadow. The margin set 3 small signs. A gold glyph, for oaths carried into action. A silver edge, for mercy kept sharp when it is difficult to do so. A bronze sigil etched with copper and brass runes, for without integrity, balance, or honor, one will find that excess power or control means very little to a mortal or divine life. Then came the final courtesy. Fizban straightened. The teacups ceased their quiet migration. Reflections in the iron walls deepened from lamplight to something starlit and argent. His shadow unfurled pinions the room already knew. Talons, he said, not to the council alone, but to all who kept the code beyond these walls. Carry what these teeth teach. Spend strength where it is needed for the downtrodden or those who need a helping hand. Draw radiance against the cruelty where restraint is not possible. Withhold rage from uncontrolled anger. Remember that justice without mercy calcifies, and mercy without truth dissolves. Keep the banner others cannot see. Then the moment folded. The velvet cloth reclaimed the dagger. The teacups found their clatter. Fizban blinked, patted his robe for a teabag, and produced a button shaped suspiciously akin to a crown. He smiled at it, puzzled and pleased. For what is grief, my brothers, if not love, persevering? A hush fell once again upon the firelight. Let your light shine brightly, dearest one, for you never know who you might inspire. We will remember his legacy. Lareth the Gold.